I'm Carey Hamilton. I'm a state rep on the north side of Indianapolis. My district includes parts of Washington and Lawrence townships and a little sliver of IPS. So think Castleton and Fort Bend and kind of over to North Central High School. It's a great, great, great district. It's very diverse, lots of cool things, lots of great natural spaces and trails.
Particular favorite trail for you, even though you don't have to. I don't want you to put anybody on blast or whatever.
Boy.
But is there a place that you like to go for a nice hike when it's not
I don't know that we
-5?
planned to talk about today, but Patrick, I started the Trails Caucus at the State House 5 years ago.
I saw that.
Okay. So I'm a big supporter of trails, and I love trails, and I've been on almost all of them in the north side anyway, because there are several. But my new favorite trail is the Nickel Plate Trail.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us what you love about the Nickel Plate Trail.
Oh my gosh. So it goes right through the heart of my district. It has already stimulated new local economic development, some new restaurants and locally owned businesses along the corridor. And it's just barely open. We actually broke ground like in October.
Okay.
Now people were on it before it was technically open, even when it was just like rough gravel.
Hoosiers are impatient sometimes.
Yes,
Hoosiers
we love
like
our
to get
trails.
going. Yes.
Yeah. But it connects. The Nickel Plate already was paved and finalized in Fishers and Hamilton County. So now it connects from the State Fair up through Hamilton County. But then at the State Fair, you can get on the Monon Trail or the Fall Creek Trail.
Yep.
So there's all kinds of great connections through the community. It's really, really awesome.
Yeah. Have you has that always been a passion of yours, just like nature and outdoors and being outdoors to begin with?
Yeah. And actually, I have a little story there. So when I was in middle school, I was in this funky little day camp, and one day the lady who ran the camp for like 30 kids took us in her little bitty school bus down to McCormick's Creek State Park.
Okay. Yep.
And I was one of the older kids, and 3 of us, me and 2 of my friends, she just said, come back in 2 hours. And we went down the creek and tromped and picked up a rock, and there's a little snake and fell down the waterfall. And, we're muddy messes and had a blast. And that was my first real, I'm in love with the outdoors. And then when I was 25 years old, it's been a minute, I left my first job out of college, which was at the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, to go hike the Appalachian Trail. So I quit my job. I hiked from Georgia to Maine.
Damn.
Yep. And when I was 25. And I was very fortunate to be able to have that opportunity.
Sure.
Right? I had no debt at that point, and I just moved my little bit of belongings into my mom's basement, moved out of my little apartment, and hiked from Georgia to Maine. And it was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And so from then on, I've been a mountain climber, a hiker at any place I am in the city. When I'm traveling, I love to run every morning.
Okay.
That's a great way to see cities.
Totally.
Running, walking, right?
Yeah.
And then in 2020, in the legislature, I got an email from the Indiana Greenways Foundation.
Okay.
It was like their e-blast, and they said, we'd love to start a Trails Caucus. And within about an hour, we had the plans. I'd called them from the House floor, and we planned our launch, and we were off and running.
You were waiting for that. You were waiting for that e-blast to go out.
Yes, it was kismet.
I love it. I love it. What do you learn about yourself in that experience, from an experience like that?
Oh, boy. Well, you learn that you have perseverance. And for me, what it turned out, the lesson I really needed to learn was that it's okay to need people.
Mm-hmm.
Part of taking off on this experience was to sort of tell myself how independent I was. And I am obviously an independent person, but I learned along the way it's just okay to need people. I made some good friends on the trail, and it kind of, after some rough life lessons earlier, it taught me to trust people again. And,
Sure.
And so that was important for me, but also, just perseverance and mental strength through physically hard times was, you can do a lot more than you think you can.
For sure.
So that was cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I would have to think that an experience like that would be would prompt thoughts of what would it look like to explore the world and do this forever, or like to not go back to Indiana, but to just do stuff like this. Like, what brought you? Like, what was like
Yeah.
the thing keeping you coming back to Indiana?
Community. So I did actually, for probably a year after hiking that trail, I thought about hiking the Pacific Crest Trail,
Okay.
which is even longer.
Sure.
But I came back and got a job within a few months, another job in government,
Yeah.
doing good environmental work. And it was just so rewarding. I just settled right back in with a few new tools in my tool belt from the experience of the trail,
Sure.
and have never looked back. I've worked always in or around public service, both in government. I did environmental consulting with my own business, serving government clients, nonprofit clients,
Okay.
even some businesses. And then ultimately ended up running for office, which I never thought I would do. Never.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did that happen then?
Well,
I didn't know we were going to do origin stories, but now I'm really interested. Not that I wasn't before, but like I'm like the more I ask, the more you say, the more I gotta ask. So
okay, all right, that's fair. Jump back. This is quite a while. I hate aging myself, but here
we're
I
not
am.
ageist here, so it's all good.
Brilliant. I love it. Thank you. Inclusive. So back in 2006,
Okay.
my husband and I had moved our family back to Indianapolis after being out of state for a couple of years, and settled in to our community on the north side where we still live with our little bitties boys. And I was following the news and kept reading about my city councilor, and I was getting frustrated and started complaining about him. And someone said, you ought to run against him. And I thought, who are you talking to? And then then I ended up running. And it was a year, you probably don't remember, Patrick, but Democrats were slaughtered in Indianapolis in 2007 when I ran for city council. We lost the mayor's office. We lost the council majority. I was trying to flip a seat from red to blue. And I actually came pretty close.
Okay.
It was like the closest race in the county. So I was proud of what I was able to accomplish, but lost. And at that time, I said, if I had another opportunity someday, I'd be interested.
Yeah.
And then I went off and I ran the Indiana Recycling Coalition for 10 years and had a wonderful experience building that statewide organization and working on public policy, which is what I love. And then in 2016, my predecessor in the legislature, Christina Hale, decided to run for lieutenant governor. And she called me, and the rest is history. I ran. It was some tough races for the first couple cycles, and now I'm in leadership in the House, the House Democratic Caucus chair, and it's incredibly rewarding work. It's tough to be in the super minority, Patrick.
Sure.
It's very tough, but the work's important.
Sure. Is it as tough as walking 2,200 miles?
That's a fair question. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah. Well, that perseverance that you gained through that trip, though,
Maybe
I'm sure
why
has
I'm
to
still
serve
here.
you.
Maybe that's why I'm still here. Yeah.
But it is like, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, from just a constituent perspective, like it does feel very uphill battle, at least since I've been engaged in the local political scene. And I would imagine to be involved and to be like in the scrum of it would require maybe superhuman levels of perseverance and the ability to stand in the face of like, quote unquote, the shit, and be willing to continue standing there when maybe it doesn't feel like things are going the way we need them to go.
Yeah.
So I just want to commend you and affirm you
you
in that, because I think I just feel like I have to tell the people that I see doing that and leading in that way that you're doing your work is resonating with me, at least one person. So, but I think it's resonating with a lot of people.
I really appreciate it. I never told you about my drink.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we can talk about it. What are you drinking?
It's too long of a story. It's a tonic. It has cocoa powder. It has almond milk. It has immunity tea because I've been fighting something all week. I'm not sick, though. I'm still healthy. I'm keeping healthy. And then it has like some spices and a little ginger.
You make it yourself, Alan?
I did. I was working from home this morning, and I thought I was challenged to bring a drink. So
totally.
I made a fun drink.
Do you generally make your own drinks at home?
No, I usually don't have time.
Okay.
But there are times in the winter when I'm working at home,
sure,
like a Friday during session, where I take a little time and make my fun drink.
Yeah. Is that like, do you experiment with the tonics that you create then, or is it you have like a go-to recipe that you like to make?
It's always an experiment. Everything I cook is like a dash of this, a dash of that, so it's always a little different.
Okay. You like to cook too then?
Yeah, when I have time, I do.
Yeah, sure. That's how I feel as
I
well.
can't say I'm a great cook, but it's fun when I have time.
That's what
You
I'm
get
saying.
that? Yeah.
All right. Now, I need you to settle a debate between my wife and I, which I don't think is much of a debate, just differences in opinions. But
Right.
I am very much a recipe follower. I think like I need to follow
Oh.
I'm pretty.
Your
I can do
wife's
alternatives.
got it down. She gets
Okay,
it.
that's well. I thought.
I stand with her.
I mean, it's just
Recipes
like,
are just general guides.
okay. It's like
So if that's
totally. So the recipes are like how some people in leadership in our federal government right now treat the Constitution, just as a set of as a set of suggestions, not necessarily rules that we're supposed to.
Yeah,
be
I don't
following.
support that.
Yeah.
Good point.
I also don't support that. Okay, I love the tonic. It actually kind of is a mini segue because I think it's part of this like, being like holistically outside, being a part of like positive impact on the environment, trying to make sure that positive changes are happening in an environment that we need to live here on Earth. And if we're not doing that, that's not good. And one of the committees that you serve on is the Roads and Transportation Committee.
Correct.
Which now knowing a little bit more about your environmental background, I think is really interesting because I don't know that how much of that work is like, hey, we're going to take environmental or things into account.
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of environmental discussion in the roads committee. And let me just, since I've kind of shared my background in the environmental field, let me add, Patrick, that I came to the environmental field, the professional field, through my concern about human health in the environment. Like you've already heard, I love the outdoors.
Totally.
That's kind of a different thing. That's related, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think about my dad died when I was very young of cancer, and it was an environmental exposure that caused it. And I think there's starting to be more awareness about, our exposure, whether it's PFAS or microplastics. But in coal waste, there's a lot of carcinogens that cause cancer and neurotoxins that cause all kinds of problems. Other toxins that can lead to premature heart attacks, et cetera, and in different types of waste streams and toxic emissions. So that's what brought me to the environmental field. I think everyone understands the importance of clean air and water, and that's why certain regulations are really important.
That makes sense. And I'm sorry about your father. And I think I really appreciate that you're like, this thing that affected me personally, I'm going to like use this and do better in the world so it maybe doesn't happen to other people. With the unfortunate consequence of like, it's going to continue to happen because there's not enough people maybe taking it from the same position that you are to do that. Kind of with that context, one of the things that I really resonated with you talking about recently was like all of these road project cancellations that the DOT is going through. And the cancellations are in part to prioritize maybe one specific project, which is the Mid-States Corridor, which I had referenced as a $1 billion project, but you recently said is $3+ billion.
Yeah.
I'm interested in like, especially with your background and thinking about what it takes to do environmental work. Like, how do you approach these conversations when you see like all of this money being pushed towards one thing that maybe doesn't need all of those funds, one, and two, maybe be extracting from stuff that you have historically been fighting for?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple different ways to think about it. I mean, we have a finite amount of resources when it comes to the state budget.
Sure.
And I believe we have to maintain the infrastructure we have and then keep investing in it over time. We just know that's true, right? And so what's really frustrating is that for some reason, the Department of Transportation, Indiana Department of Transportation, has prioritized this Mid-States Corridor, which, as you may know, seems to be very unpopular down in Du Bois County and the surrounding counties where it's planned for. According to a recent poll, 80+% of people oppose it, actually. Pretty significant opposition from locals. And to kind of make the environmental connection, this new corridor would go along I'm using my hands. Of course, our listeners can't see them, but
Totally. I'm a hand user as well, which is sometimes why I hold the mic with two hands so I can keep it under control. Yeah.
So this corridor goes along the existing 231. There's a road called 231 that goes all the way through our state.
Yep.
And it weaves in and out. It's new construction. It's all planned new construction that weaves in and out of existing road. It will close off current roads that connect communities to schools and farmers to their land and kind of all these crazy negative impacts while spending, yes, it's $1 billion just for the part of Du Bois County. That's where the communication gets challenging with how much it costs. But if we do the whole corridor, which of course you would do if you're going to build it,
Sure.
it's more than $3 billion, and we don't know how much the land acquisition. So that's an extra significant amount of money. So it's at least $3 billion. We know it's probably significantly more than that. And so the folks don't want it down there. We don't want to lose. I think it's about 1,900 to 1,000 acres of farmland, all kinds of private property infringements. Also, I think it's several hundred acres of forest land.
Okay.
I don't want to get these statistics wrong, but I think that's pretty correct, or close to correct, for a project people don't want.
Yeah.
But then just priorities, right? State tax dollars. We have planned projects in our communities to keep our roads safe and working well for those communities. And suddenly 340 projects have been closed. And by suddenly, I mean in the last year or two.
Sure. I mean, that's pretty quickly, though, to close off that many projects.
Yeah. They've been canceled or delayed, which means they may never come back, or scaled back significantly. So less investments. And this is in communities in every corner of our state.
Right.
And instead, the state is saying, we're going to spend this money down in southern Indiana for a project that maybe just a few special interests want and the communities will be hurt by.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
Have you seen the movie Cars?
Yes, of course.
So that's.
I have two little boys, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like I've watched it maybe 1,000 times in the last year, but that's kind of what it made me think of. Is like what happens to Radiator Springs is like what they're trying to do to southern Indiana.
Yes,
is like essentially take you away from like seeing the majesty of Indiana in its totality and forcing you to get from A to B as quickly as possible. How do you, like, especially working in this committee and working a lot on maybe combating some of this, how much, like, do you get to influence the language and messaging around some of these projects?
Well, on this in particular, I think there could be an opportunity to change the final story. I really do. I think NDOT, the agencies are run by the administration, so this is apparently a Governor Braun priority. I don't believe it's necessarily a priority of the majority of legislators, whether they're Republican or Democrat. So I think continuing to educate Hoosiers about this issue. The Mid-States Corridor has not been built yet.
Sure.
Maybe we can change the story.
How do we go, well, apart from how do we help to change that story then, I guess?
What I've been sharing through my social media, short form videos.
Heck yeah. That's the age we're in now.
That's the age we're in now. Is for folks, and this means all Hoosiers that are paying attention, to just let their state rep, let their state senator know that they oppose the Mid-States Corridor and they support reinstating projects in their communities. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
If we get that word out to more legislators, we still have half of the 2026 legislative session to get through.
Sure.
It's going to be just 1 month, but it's the half of the session. And there is a chance for the legislature to craft some language that would make sure that the best interests of the majority of Hoosiers are taken into account when spending these dollars.
Okay. How much more difficult is it to try and change that final story, even just amend the narrative as is now, when you're in the sprint of the session, because for some reason we thought we should start it in December,
right?
To try and win redistricting. Shout out to Hoosiers! Shout out to Hoosiers everywhere!
We won that one.
But I mean, not to complicate the simple messaging, but what other things can we do because the urgency is much greater?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna kind of take us to the next level of this
Let's
conversation that you and I haven't talked about in pre-conversation at all, and that's November.
Okay.
So right now in Indiana in the House, we have the best opportunity to start to change the story for Hoosiers, to bring more balance and debate and transparency to the legislative process. And that's by breaking the supermajority in the House. We have 30 Democrats today out of 100. If we get to 34, we break the supermajority, which means we have more of ability to slow down the process, to have more debate, to be at the table, to make bad policy less bad, to get more good policy through.
Sure.
And it's the first step in my mind towards getting even more balance and
Okay.
and reclaiming a Democratic majority in the House. There's the governorship, there's the Senate, and there's the House, kind of the triumvirate of power in Indiana. And of course, it's similar in Washington, D.C. And getting one of those three voices to be of the minority party
Sure.
today will be huge for Indiana. And we are on that path. We're working very hard. So, pay attention right now during session for the next 4 weeks, listening to the calls to action coming from your voices that you listen to in the state house, whether it's me as your representative or other folks in the legislature, the Democrats in the House in particular. But then plugging into the process leading into November, we have terrific candidates running for office to flip seats across Indiana.
Yeah.
We really do. People have been paying attention, and they're frustrated with the status quo. We haven't really talked yet about affordability.
Yeah.
Affordability. We have been fighting our tails off this session. And last year, our agenda was the same.
Sure.
Affordability. This is what we're fighting for working families across Indiana. And as we do a better job of communicating that to Hoosiers, they're listening more. They're tired of what they're getting from their current representation. They're listening to folks who want to maybe replace them.
Yeah.
And it's our opportunity. So we need Hoosiers to plug in like they've never plugged in before, to get involved if they've never been involved before, and help us win.
Yeah. I had Senator Andrea Hundley on earlier, I guess it was end of last year. And one of the stats that she brought up was
she's terrific. Hi, Andrea.
She's an amazing person. 101,000 registered voters in Marion County did not turn out in the general election of 24. 300,000 across the state. I love wanting people, I agree. People need to engage and tap in ways that they never have before. I've been telling people you gotta do that. And I guess kind of going back to, okay, with that in mind, I think one of the things I would help people get engaged is, again, more transparency in this process, in politics and what happens at the state house in general. So can you talk about, we flip these 4 seats, we take back at least the majority in one area or one arena, we break up the super majority. What does that mean in terms of how what levers does that unlock for Democrats to be able to fight back against some of the stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to point back, since gerrymandering is fresh on everyone's mind after the redistricting battle, and folks, more so than ever before, gerrymandering is kind of in the weeds, right?
Sure.
But people now understand we need not to have political parties drawing maps, that's not a good thing. So if we break the supermajority and then some, hopefully in the next couple cycles, the next time we draw the maps is after the census in 2030. So in 2031, if we've safely broken that supermajority, we walk out of the state house until we get maps that we've negotiated.
Okay.
Right? Now, what I would like to see is, between now and then, have legislation passed that would create a nonpartisan redistricting commission. That's ultimately the goal. We need to take political parties out of the map drawing process.
Sure.
I've stood for that from day one in office. We just saw why that's so important. Hopefully we can get to that point. But if we don't get to that point by 2031, at least if we have some balance in the House, we can push back and make the maps as fair as possible. They're not going to be fair otherwise.
Sure. What does as fair as possible look like, just from a high level statistical
there are
viewpoint?
different ways people talk about this, but for me, I think it's having more competitive seats.
Okay.
I think it's really important. We have too few competitive seats in Indiana today, and when you don't have competition,
sure,
you don't have as much transparency and sunlight,
sure,
and right? So it's we all understand why competition is important in politics, and so that's number one for me. And I think it's making sure there aren't those. You look at a map and you can see gerrymandering. Now, with the sophistication of map drawing technology today and the voter data we have,
Yeah.
it's easier to make them a little more cleanly divided.
Sure.
But when you see what we saw in the fall,
Yeah.
right, where Indianapolis was divided into 4
5,
congressional,
yeah,
it was actually 5 when you included
Okay.
Hamilton. So from my house, I was a couple of miles from 5 congressional seats.
That's wild.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
And that won't happen if we have a better process for drawing maps, which starts with having a more balanced Indiana House of Representatives.
Okay. I like that. And I think like one of the things in the conversations I have with people, especially folks that who are self-admittedly not engaged in politics, even like tangentially, because to them it feels like it doesn't really affect their lives. Some of the stuff, the headline making stuff that happens in politics. And so for them, like, that's enough to turn them away completely. I appreciate like just I think what people are saying to me is that it's just so murky. Like I can't see with clarity what it means to be involved. And I think because we've been operating for the last 20 years under one concept and purview, I think that kind of cutting through of the fog has been so much more difficult. And what redistricting has done is kind of like done some of that parsing through.
Let me say this.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go for it. No.
Indiana is much more purple than people think.
Right.
The maps make it harder for us to see that in our representation.
Sure.
So I don't want folks to feel like there's no hope, because there is hope.
100%.
There really is.
100%.
Right? And I think that's critically important.
Yeah.
And right now, when people are seeing in Minnesota, average Joe folks on TV saying, "What is happening to my community? This is terrible."
Yeah.
First Amendment rights are being taken away. I think that's a wake-up call. And even if you've never fully put yourself in the bucket of Democrat or Republican, or maybe you have put yourself in the Republican bucket, I think if you're independent thinking at all about politics, you can see that more balance is good. And, transparency. I see every day the fact that having supermajority means too many discussions are having behind closed doors.
Sure.
Right. And that's just bad for our country. It's bad for our state. Certainly it's bad for our community here in Indianapolis when the state house is not transparent.
Well, and I think that's how you end up with the prioritization of projects that the public is overwhelmingly against.
That's exactly right. Well, brought that back nicely, Patrick.
You brought it up earlier. Affordability, that was one of the main things I wanted to bring you in here to talk about. And I think like one of the reasons I want to bring up Mid-States Corridor in your recent update was because like I'm looking at the $3 billion number and I'm like at the same time looking at how much everything has continued to rise in cost.
Yeah.
And then looking at the rhetoric coming out of the supermajority saying there's no way that we can lower the cost because there is no money. So can you kind of explain how you are navigating those conversations and trying to like disseminate the information of like, this is why the supermajority is not working, particularly from the affordability perspective, because though that Mid-States Corridor conversation is happening behind the closed doors, and if we don't have any of that information, we can't really truly say like, oh, okay, this is a good reason or this isn't a good reason, or this will affect affordability in this way.
Yeah.
Can you just like, I feel like I'm not asking the question well because I'm confused.
Yeah.
But but like how does that work from your eyes? Because you're in it, all of those things.
Yeah. Let me give you a for instance. So on affordability with utilities, what we can do in the super minority is offer amendments that would actually lead to affordability when it comes to utilities, for example. So we had 12 amendments on the Republican bill that they're calling utility affordability. And it really just plays around the edges. Folks aren't going to notice much of a difference in their utility bills. There are a couple of like mildly good things in there. So I
Sure.
voted for it. But our 12 amendments in different ways would have, and in the near term, for example, doing away with the 7% sales tax. So
Yep.
we would take 7% off the top of our utility bills if we banished that sales tax right out of the gate. They wouldn't do it. So near term, immediate benefit, that's an example. Between of all those 12 amendments, there were also some long-term solutions. There was also some sunlight, for example, requiring 3 public hearings in a community when another rate increase is requested by the utility company. Those sorts of ideas, plethora of ideas, were all shot down. They were all shot down. But we fought hard. We're talking to our constituents about that work, and they're seeing the difference between what Democrats are fighting for and what they're getting from the supermajority. That's how we can change the political story for Indiana. Did I answer the question?
You did answer the question. And I think this might be something that you maybe can't answer, but especially thinking about, like, again, I keep talking about the $3 billion because it's just a big number, and that's like seems like where a lot of money is going. But like, what is, from your perspective, the rationale to shoot down amendments that aren't even changing the totality of the bill that they are already going to pass, but will positively impact Hoosiers that have said publicly that this is what we want as the people who live in your districts?
That's such a logical question.
When I brought up why are we using more data for map drawing, Senator Humbley said, like, oh, you want data-driven solutions? You're one of the rare ones, I guess. So, like, yeah, I don't know if it's just, maybe it's a rhetorical thing, but like, just from your perspective, like,
I
why?
can share a little. It's a good question. So I think my colleagues across the aisle have spent years crafting energy policy that they stand behind.
Sure.
A lot of those laws were really written by the utility companies, and they would defend those laws today. But what I saw, and what I have pushed back for now 10 years, is laws that don't create a balance between what we need from utilities as far as making sure they can provide affordable, it's not affordable, excuse me, that was never part of the calculation, reliable,
Sure.
And that's not always happening, but trying to make sure, that was always an argument. You know, they need to make these investments to be reliable. And the consumer, the ratepayer, right? There's been no balance in that conversation. So utility companies say, we need this and this and this to provide reliable energy, and they get it. And there's no real debate. And we've been pushing back.
Sure.
But within those closed door conversations where the bills are drawn and set in stone, there's no one pushing back. So, that's a big reason why we've landed where we are. And then once you've defended policies year after year, it's kind of hard to undo it and admit that you were wrong year after year after year.
Yeah. So, okay. So now I have another question then. Thinking about, like, you talked about we're more purple than a lot of people would think. I would like to think that even some Republican members are more moderate centrist than they are like far right or hard right leaning. However, like, when you find yourself in a party, like, it maybe is more difficult to go against the party. Like,
yes.
Okay.
Let me jump in
go
here.
for it.
So there's something I really want to say because I don't want to besmirch my colleagues across the aisle, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of really great people. I have friends across the aisle that I respect, right? But what happens when you have a supermajority for 12 years and majority for years before that? You're, got all this concentrated power, and decisions are made by leadership only. And over time, there's less debate allowed within their caucus. And just over time, it becomes less transparent and less serving of the people. It's just a reality.
Sure.
We know this. I mean, history tells us this. The concentration of power is not a good thing.
Sure.
That's why I'm fighting for balance.
Yeah.
So we can have more sunshine on the process. So it's not that Republicans are bad and Democrats are good. I do obviously strongly support Democratic policies.
Sure.
But to be fair to my colleagues across the aisle, it's not all of their fault that they have all of this concentrated power, but my goodness, collectively they're fighting hard to keep it.
Sure. And that's the thing, like you don't have to be the person that perpetrates something bad. But
Mhm.
if you are somebody who perpetuates the bad
That's
behavior
right.
or empowers or
Yeah.
emboldens the bad
Yeah.
behavior, like that's a huge problem.
It is.
And I think a lot of people can do the work of perpetuation but use like, well, I voted for this thing as the screen or the mask to keep people from being like, oh, okay, well, my congressperson is good. Like they sometimes I don't agree with them, but like I'll keep supporting them in that way.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is because we maybe aren't fielding candidates or running candidates to at least compete in those districts, which seems to be like we're entering into a change a little bit.
Definitely. We definitely are. And one other thing that has been challenging for Democrats, we've lost the messaging war for many years, right? And the party across the aisle has been very effective
Sure.
every campaign season at saying, in suburban races in Indianapolis, this candidate wants to defund the police or what,
Sure.
I mean, this is not factual based information, but it scares people
Totally.
and it has an impact on the outcome. We are fielding terrific candidates who look like their districts, who are engaged in their communities, who are parents and working people and thoughtful leaders in their communities in different fields, in the nonprofit sector, in the business sector, their public safety, their teachers, really terrific human beings who are stepping up to help bring a better future for their communities. They see kind of the corrosive impact over time of this concentration of power, and they're
Yeah.
engaging, and they're not all folks who've been active in a partisan way in their lives. They're
Sure.
just saying the Democratic Party is fighting for the things that are important in my community, affordability being top of the list,
Yeah.
right? And they also have a more balanced, we Democrats have a more balanced and compassionate view on policies like immigration, where we know we need secure borders. But we also I believe that if someone came into our country 20 years ago and has raised their family and are productive members of our communities, they came into our country under a system that we allowed.
Right.
Right. And to then, separate families and tear them away from their communities and kick them out of the country is inhumane.
Yeah.
That's not what I think a majority of folks who voted across the aisle in the last presidential election were voting for.
No.
These aren't criminals, Patrick. And so, it's a moment. We have national policies that are waking people up. We have state policies that are waking people up. And we just have to leverage that so we can have our government work better for us after November.
Well, and like you said, like the right or for the Republican Party for a long time has been winning the messaging war, and it's been the narrative that has influenced people's actions, like at the voting booth or wherever the case might be. How much you engage, how you move in your community, how you think about other people that you see in your community. Like it's just been narrative, and it's not been data driven. Because if you look at the data, undocumented community members contribute more to the country than they've ever taken back or received.
Yep.
They're still the most vulnerable, despite the fact that they have to pay into the country to be here, even without documents. And the majority of the undocumented people that they're going after are, one, not criminals, and two, are part of the process of either asylum or seeking refugee in some way. Like,
doing everything the right way.
Exactly.
Walking into immigration court and getting nabbed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you talked about like how Democrats specifically have been losing that messaging battle. And I think one of the things that I really admire about you, I really admire about Senator Hundley, I've seen Senator Yoder stepping into, I think, a little bit more of the social media game, is like and Representative Gore, trying to take back or talk differently about things that are happening. How do you see us, or see progressives or Democrats or just other people who have differing views? How do you see that messaging, winning that kind of messaging campaign? Like, how do you see us shifting that narrative, and how are you approaching doing that?
I think it's about, staying focused on the common ground.
Okay.
Right. Whether it's affordability or kind of a basic humanity in a pragmatic way. these are the things that I'm hearing from my constituents. I have a lot of Republican supporters in my district. They think of me as pragmatic and common sense.
Sure.
Every once in a while, they get frustrated if I seem frustrated with, something on the right.
Right.
but they respect me, and it's because I think it's because I can put myself in different people's shoes and
Sure.
and think about issues from different perspectives, but still come back to a place that feels reasonable. That doesn't mean everybody agrees with me.
Right.
But I think back to your question about Democrats messaging,
Yeah.
whether it's in Indiana or nationally, I think we're getting to a place of that common ground and being clear, and concise, and repetitive
Sure.
about what we are fighting for, and that's working families across the country.
So the Working Families platform, like that's specifically the messaging that we want to get across right now.
Absolutely.
Can you
Yeah.
talk about like truly what that means? Because I think a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people don't understand what like a working class family is anymore. I think it's been really distorted.
It's
what that
been
is.
totally distorted. Yeah. So there's several different kind of policy solutions that I think would help Hoosier families a ton. First of all, it's important just to kind of lift up the reality that we all understand, and that's the kind of the great income divide that
Sure.
we've seen, the hollowing out of the middle class. That's a real thing. And the fact that our lower income families are struggling more than ever because utility rates are so high, the housing crisis is real, childcare is completely out of reach for a lot of families, and state policy in particular has exacerbated that.
Sure.
So just on that point, because that's an issue that's very important to me and near and dear to my heart, childcare, we have now in the past year created a wait list for families. So a family of 4 that makes $43,000 or less. A year and a half ago, they would have been eligible for a child care subsidy that would help make child care affordable for them and their family.
Okay.
And then they go to work.
Sure.
And then they try to, get more income over time, get better jobs, and support their family and have a thriving family in the future. Well, there are now 25,000 families that make less than $43,000 a year and do not have access to affordable childcare. So how in the heck are they supposed to get by,
Sure.
right? My colleagues across the aisle all the time are talking about families and people needing to pull themselves up from their bootstraps.
Yeah.
Well, what if they don't have boots, let
Yeah.
alone bootstraps, right?
Mm.
We have to kind of level the playing field and give families a shot. If we want people to work, they have to be able to go to work.
Sure.
And if they don't have childcare, they can't go to work.
Sure. How much can we do at the state level to kind of move differently than federal policy? Because obviously it will
that's a
require
great
us
question.
breaking the supermajority to be able to change some of that, because that's obviously why we're moving in lockstep. But once that happens, like, can we do things at the state level that can buffer us and really help support those families, especially those 25,000
Yes.
families,
Yes.
going forward, as opposed to waiting on the federal government to help
Increasing
out?
the minimum wage to a reasonable level.
Sure.
Not being one of the few states left in the country that's still at $7.25. We can make sure families have access to affordable childcare. We can provide pre-K for all, which not only serves to provide childcare for 4-year-olds, this high-quality learning environment, and frankly, that's what we expect from all childcare, is a high-quality learning environment, because
Totally.
90% of brain development happens by age 5.
Totally.
But that pre-K for all, this is, again, it's cradle to career, Patrick. That's what I think we have to make sure, that we're giving kiddos a good start.
Sure.
And a good liftoff in life. And it means we're making strategic investments from cradle to career where needed.
Yeah.
Pre-K is a proven investment. It pays many times over when it comes to children's educational outcomes. Their likelihood to stay out of the criminal justice system is much higher if they have pre-K, if they're able to go to pre-K. Their families do better. They spend less money, a year less childcare expense for the family. If they have a couple of kids, that's huge for
Sure.
them. The outcome benefits just multiply. A more prepared workforce and better citizens. Pays off 4 times over at a minimum. That's a smart taxpayer investment.
Yeah.
Right? If we're going to get back 4 times those tax dollars, why would we not do that? Indiana is one of the worst states in the country when it comes to pre-K investment.
And I feel like that goes a lot.
Woo! I'm on a roll.
I love it. I appreciate you sharing because I feel like one of the reasons I started the show, I guess, that kind of inadvertently was just so I could be more informing of myself, really, but anybody who might be listening, of stuff that I feel like just sits on the periphery until you have a kid or you are navigating the school system in whatever capacity, or you just need a job and you're looking for a job and the only job that pays you is the one that pays you $725. Which I don't know how people are owning 6 to 7 homes. Like Scott Bassett said, I think recently, everybody in America owns 6 to 7 homes, and like people can afford to get rid of their homes. I'm like,
oh my
who
gosh.
owns that many?
Did
I
he
can't
say that?
I can't even own the one home.
I'm gonna go find that. I can't believe
I'm pretty
he
sure
said
that was him,
oh
and I think it was a World
gosh.
Economic Forum. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty
Oh.
sure that was within the last week or two where he said that, and I think I was just like, who owns that many houses? But he was specifically talking about like working families. Like it was in the context of like why people are complaining about the cost of stuff, and they're like, well, if you could just give up your 2 other homes or whatever, and I'm like, nobody has that. Just like nobody's buying $200 for their kids on Christmas. Like,
can I take a moment
take
talk
all the
about
moments.
how we can responsibly fund some of this?
Yes, absolutely.
So, let's say pre-K. Today, in the last budget that was passed almost a year ago now, the Republicans had a fiscal forecast that showed we were going to have less revenue coming into the state. So they were cutting programs. They cut childcare. They cut pre-K. But yet, and you've heard me say this, haven't you?
Yep.
They found 100 million new tax dollars every year moving forward. That's 200 million in that budget alone, to send the wealthiest Hoosier families, the top 3%, to the private schools they already go to. And this is in the name of choice in education.
Choice. Yeah.
And so let's just take a moment there, Patrick. So that's, families making $400,000-$500,000 a year, $1 million a year. We're now giving them a $7,000 subsidy to their private school that nobody else can still afford. That's not choice. The average family cannot afford the $20,000 tuition at that school. We're literally just building fancier public schools on the public dime while hurting our working families.
I was gonna bring up.
That's only one example.
What's going on, like with the ILEA and this attack on the IPS on IPS, and like I'm just like everything that you say, I'm just like, oh, there's another dot, and there's another dot, and there's another dot, and I think one of the reasons that people disengage is because we are finding ourselves in silos or islands or hovering around or orbiting particular dots, and we're having trouble connecting them because the supermajority and other people that perpetuate that intentionally obscure the lines and create these disconnections.
Yeah. Well, choice sounds good, right?
On its face, it sounds great.
But when you understand,
it's
not really about choice, is it?
But that's what we've been talking about is this narrative. In like creating, I just talked to Congressman Andre Carson recently, and he talked about symbols, like symbols that the administration uses in order to further perpetuate some of these operations that they're doing. And one of the things I brought up was like Dilley Detention Center. So in Texas, where they're holding all of these kids, and you're starting to see video come out of these kids like protesting in the detention center. And I'm like, it kind of works for the administration twofold, because that kind of like publicity of like what's happening in the detention center is a symbol of fear.
Yeah.
And it's meant to make people afraid to go vote, to engage in your community, because if you do that, we might show up and take your kid away and put them over here. And like, because we talked about like, like a lot of this things is leading to family separation.
Yeah.
I'm adopted. So like in the last 5 years, I learned a lot about family separation and how really, really traumatic that can be, regardless of when it happens, from infancy to, you're in your double digit age. I don't know what that is. Adolescence. Like it's not good. It's not good when we have policies and programs and systems built on a foundation of separation.
No.
We need to figure out, we need to be moving from a foundation of connection. And one of the things I talk about a lot is like I think in a lot of places, Indy, I think, but in just a lot of various communities, we do a lot of floor building, a lot of foundation building. We build more organizations, new things to help with a specific thing. But instead of like when those things pop up, we talk to each other and figure out, oh, who's doing this, who's doing this. We want to be the person that does the thing. And so we don't build anything but the floor. So we
Yeah.
don't build the rest of the house.
Oh, this is good.
Go
Yeah.
for it.
Well, no, you're right. I actually was just talking to a young person who wants to be engaged, and this is going to help inform that conversation, because I don't think the intention is just to be. It's more of I didn't realize these other things are happening, right? But then once you get going, you get going. Right?
Yeah.
But if you can plug in on the front end and be a part of something bigger,
Yes.
that will be rewarding for folks and do more good for our community.
100%. So great segue then. What are some of those things that you're like excited about, or like if people are like, I want to start something or I want to get engaged, like where are you pointing, like what directions are you pointing them to?
Oh, goodness. So we're going to be out of session in a
Yeah.
month, and then there'll be lots of information sharing about target races in central Indiana that folks can plug into. You mentioned already the need to get more folks engaged and at the polls in Indianapolis. So Marion County Democrats are getting organized like never before right now, to make sure that anyone who wants to plug in to go knock on doors, get people registered, make sure they show up, make sure they know how to vote early, all of that. There will be opportunities to do that. I'm posting a lot on social media. Folks can follow me. I'll share it, especially what's going on with House Democrats. Again, where we have the best opportunity to start to change the story at the State House. But and I'm probably forgetting a couple of other key entities, but I'd say Marion County Democrats, your local electeds like myself, plug in, follow. I'm doing now during session a weekly email.
Okay.
If folks want to, they can go to my website and sign up for that. Let alone just follow me on social, because I'm posting all the time now.
Yeah.
But plan to, I think, just kind of finding something that you can grab a hold of and commit to. If it's knocking on doors for 2 hours every Saturday in August, September, and October, or less than that or more than that,
Sure.
right? Make that commitment, find the candidate you want to support, and do that. There are 50 different examples of whatever that is. It's a little different that will make sense for folks. If it's phone calls, if it's different things. But, I think when people think about engaging in politics, sometimes they think, well, depending on where they are in the process, right? There's every different skill set you have, whatever skill set you have can add value to the democratic process, right? And so just go start talking to people. You can ask your local elected for coffee. I meet with constituents all the time just to have coffee.
Okay.
And ask those questions. There's no dumb question,
Sure.
right? How do I get involved? This is the issue I care about. Tell me about that. What else are you working on? Start those conversations. It can be very powerful, and it's empowering not just for you, but it's also empowering for your elected official who's
For sure.
learning more and having more on the ground conversations. That's something I need to do every day, and sometimes it's hard to fit in.
Yeah. Well, it just shows that you're listening. And I think I've been talking about this in different contexts, but like people just want to be heard at the end of the day.
Yes.
Like, even if you're not going to implement anything that you've heard from like the people that you're listening to, for the most part, what I found in my storytelling and podcasting journey is just like people have never been asked, like, not even like, tell me about your story, but just like, how you doing? And like, if we can start meeting people on the human level like that,
Yes.
and just asking like, hey, how you doing? And then like learning more about people. Like, that's what I want from leaders, like people
Yeah.
that are leading me in the State House and in other places. Like, that's what I'm looking for when I'm going to the polls, is like
Yeah.
who's been actually out on the ground in their communities and then other communities.
Yeah.
And how do I know that? Is that not only that I'm meeting them, but I'm hearing other people talk about the interactions that they've had. So I appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming here and having this very rambly, on my part, like all over conversation that I'm really excited to put together and share with people. I have one more question for you, if that's
Yeah,
okay. Actually, I
yeah.
have two more, but
Okay.
one very specific one is, I think there's been a lot of hopeful things that you've shared today in this conversation, things that give me hope, and things that I think people will take away as the pinpricks of light in their life that they can hold on to and be hopeful. What else is giving you, what's really giving you hope right now as you move through the rest of the session and the rest of 2026?
It's people getting engaged, I think, newly getting engaged, right? I'm hearing that as I talk about different issues, whether it's the Mid-States Corridor or childcare, I'm connected with people that are worried about different issues in their communities, but they're getting engaged and they're saying, how do I reach out? I reached out. I left a voicemail. I'm going to leave a voicemail again tomorrow. I'm having my voice heard, and it really does make a difference. I'll close with this, that back to the Mid-States. I think the reason I think there's still a chance to stop the Mid-States project, reinvest in all of our communities when it comes to that basic infrastructure, is because ultimately our elected officials do, have to respond to the voters. So if the voters are engaged, right, our voice can be heard. And this is an issue that crosses party lines absolutely for sure, right? So there are lots of reasons to be hopeful. And then, our great candidates and great program leading up to November, plug into it, friends, because we're going to change the story for Indiana.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to add this. I might cut it out, but I have to make sure because I'm going to link everything in the show notes. But remind us one more time the places that we can be following you, supporting you, and everywhere that we need to be following right now.
Thank you. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook. I have both campaign pages. So, for example, on Facebook, that's Rep Carey Hamilton for Indy North Side, but then there's also a political page. You can find it.
Actually, let me ask you this real quick. Is there like a preferred page that reps
That's a
or
good
people
question.
would, like, you want them to follow and be engaging with?
Oh gosh, it's hard to answer that. So we have to have the official side.
Okay.
Which is a little less information.
Sure.
On the political, I do both the official information and the man on the street, what I'm doing in the community, partisan stuff, political stuff, get people out to vote stuff, right? I said partisan, but you know what I mean. So whatever you want. Just follow along.
Best for
I
posted
individual. All those videos. I'm posting them everywhere. So
okay, perfect. All right. Well, Carey, thank you so much for coming through and having this conversation. I'm sure we're going to have more in the future, but excited to support you in the work that you're doing, and change is coming to Indiana, 100%.
Woohoo! Here's to that.
Here's to that.
Thanks, Patrick.
Absolutely.